Were you calling the shots, though, Mr. President, ultimately? Was the Biden administration caught off guard by this latest surge of migrants? Is it clear who's going to govern Gaza once this war is over? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right, when I think about what the Today Show does, it's not just about the mornings, it's about your whole day. There's a feeling of, we're in there with you. Then let's take on this day together.
Morning, Al.
I think when you open your eyes, you get to decide, how's my day going to be? We want to be a way to start your day, lighten your load, every single.
A diplomatic breakthrough. Overnight, Israeli leaders reaching an agreement with Hamas to free dozens of hostages. Our team in D.C. joining us with the details of that deal and America's part in securing it.
An Oscar-winning actor and a Hollywood newcomer both facing fallout over their comments about the Israel-Hamas war. How the controversy unfolded amid protests.
Hollywood churning out holiday hits. There's a whole slate of new films to catch at the box office. We break down all the biggest movies opening this weekend.
It's a record-breaking year for Thanksgiving travel. Is America's strained airline infrastructure ready for it? We'll take you inside the air traffic control tower at Chicago's O'Hare Airport to see how they handle the holiday chaos.
Between the floats and football, furry friends will take center stage this Thanksgiving. Go behind the scenes of the National Dog Show to get a sneak peek at the top pups. It's Wednesday, November 22nd. Early today starts right now. Hi there, I'm Frances Rivera.
And I'm Philip Mena. Breaking news this morning, Israel and Hamas have agreed to a 4-day truce in the Gaza Strip and a limited prisoner swap. After a marathon meeting in Tel Aviv, Benjamin Netanyahu's government approved the deal early in the morning local time. For the latest, let's go to Washington, D.C. and Bree Jackson. Good morning, Bree. So what do we know about the involvement of the Biden White House in this deal?
Good morning, Philip. A senior Biden administration official confirms to NBC News that the White House spent weeks working on the hostage deal. The U.S. and Israel had discussed delaying the Gaza ground invasion to make space for a potential deal, but that was apparently rejected by Israel. Talks also broke off briefly after the Israeli incursion into the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza. Negotiations were conducted through intermediaries with messages passed from Gaza to Doha, Qatar, or Cairo and back. And we know that President Biden spoke directly with the Emir of Qatar to press for a deal. And late last night, in a written statement, Mr. Biden thanked the Emir and also the Egyptian president for their, quote, critical leadership and partnership in reaching this deal. The president said he has no higher priority than ensuring the safety of Americans held hostage around the world. Because there are up to 10 Americans being held in the Gaza Strip, this deal will likely secure the release of 3 of them, including 3-year-old Abigail Edan. She was taken after both of her parents were executed during the surprise terror attack. The deal breaks down like this. Hamas will release 50 hostages, mostly women and children, in exchange for 150 Palestinian women and children held in Israeli prisons. A pause in fighting and drone flyovers will start sometime today and continue for 4 days, and hostages would be released in stages. The truce will allow much-needed humanitarian aid to reach Gaza civilians and could be extended if Hamas decides to release more hostages. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said the deal also includes Red Cross visits and medicine for the nearly 200 remaining hostages. Netanyahu called it a difficult but correct decision and stressed that fighting will resume when the deal elapses. Now, there's only one obstacle now. Israelis have 24 hours to petition the country's Supreme Court to block the release of Palestinian prisoners, but there is little chance of the High Court standing in the way at this stage. Philip, back to you.
Encouraging progress this morning, Bree. Thank you.
The U.S. military says it has retaliated against Iraqi militants. The Pentagon says an Iranian-backed militia fired a close-range ballistic missile at the Al-Assad air base in Iraq. The missile hit an empty building, but several U.S. service members reported minor injuries. A U.S. military gunship struck the militants' vehicle, killing several fighters. There have now been at least 65 attacks against U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria since October 17. Defense officials say the ballistic missile used yesterday is an escalation of other recent attacks.
New this morning, Hollywood stars are coming under new fire for statements on the Israel-Hamas war. On Tuesday, actress Melissa Barrera was dropped from the upcoming Scream 7. Sources tell Variety it was due to social media posts Barrera had made about the conflict that were interpreted as anti-Semitic. A spokesperson for Spyglass Media Group told Variety they have zero tolerance for anti-Semitism or the incitement of hate in any form. This comes the same day actress Susan Sarandon was dropped by United Talent Agency, also over comments she made about the war. At a pro-Palestinian rally in New York last week, Sarandon said Jewish Americans are getting a taste of what it feels like to be a Muslim in the U.S. Sarandon added at the rally that she is against anti-Semitism and Islamophobia.
Now to Colorado, where Donald Trump's political future is still in question. The state Supreme Court says it will hear appeals in a case where voters are trying to keep the former president off next year's ballot. A group of voters filed a challenge arguing that Trump should be ineligible because of his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. The state judge dismissed the case last week. She decided that Trump did engage in an insurrection, but that the eligibility rules do not apply to former presidents. The state Supreme Court will start hearing appeals on December 6th.
Breaking overnight, a new chapter in the leadership drama at OpenAI. The company announced early this morning that the former CEO Sam Altman will return to the position he was ousted from last Friday. Altman's firing led to an uproar from OpenAI employees, many of whom threatened to defect to Microsoft with their former chief if he was not brought back. And the board members responsible for the decision did not resign. In a post to X early Wednesday, Altman reaffirmed his love for the company and said he looks forward to working with the new members of the board of directors.
The weather has been impacting Thanksgiving travel all week, but with AAA reporting a record 55 million people hitting the roads and skies, it will be a massive test for the already strained airline infrastructure. Tom Costello is following it all.
Across the eastern U.S., that heavy rain is testing travelers' patience on clogged highways as 49 million Americans drive over the coming days.
Whatever happens, we're just going to roll with it.
To long and winding airport security lines.
It's just a lot. A lot of people, a lot of it's just chaos.
5 million people flying.
We kind of go into this knowing that it's going to be a real busy travel time.
Group 2, please proceed.
Chicago O'Hare, the nation's fourth busiest airport, is United's mega hub with 850 inbound and outbound flights each day.
She came into Fox 27.
It's a 24/7 logistical juggle.
United 1879 with medical, Park Charlie 27.
From medical and mechanical issues to weather, catering, fueling, crew schedules, flight delays, passenger and luggage reroutes.
Everyone in here is engaged and connected to make sure that we can keep the airline on schedule.
High stress on the ground and high above.
So this is an area most people don't get to see. It's the ramp tower for United here at O'Hare.
United 634, taxi Bravo Sierra, Volchart taxiway Alpha.
The controllers here act as traffic cops, directing hundreds of planes moving on United's ramp.
All of the ground traffic in the alleys between the Bravo and the Charlie concourses. And then departing flights are turned over to air traffic control.
Skyscape 364 ramp, Northport, Bravo Line 2, parking Bravo 1.
This feels like a pressure cooker job up here.
It can be, but usually you're too busy to notice.
Dave Heisinger is the ramp tower manager.
Anything from a blown tire to a broken airplane or somebody making a wrong turn can take the field from just relatively quiet to chaos.
The big test comes Sunday. Nearly 3 million flyers nationwide setting a new record. Tom Costello, NBC News, Chicago.
Thankfully, that rain is mostly moving off the coast this morning, but it could linger on the East Coast. NBC meteorologist Michelle Grossman is tracking it all for us. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, we're seeing big improvement. Not right now. We're seeing some heavy rain still falling, but it is in the process of moving on out. So we're going to see improving conditions throughout this Wednesday. Right now, looking at radar, you can see that heavy rain is still falling in spots along the I-95 corridor from New York City all the way down to Raleigh. Where you see those brighter colors, that's where we're seeing the heaviest rain. Also seeing some snow falling. We can see up to 8 inches in some spots of northern Maine. Where you see these pinks and purples, that is freezing rain and also a wintry mix. So it's a little dicey if you're traveling there this morning. And we will see that lingering into the afternoon hours there. But most of our precipitation will be moving offshore. And that's because this system is finally moving out of here. It's moving quickly. So we're going to start to see improving conditions throughout the day. Could see some lingering showers too along the eastern coast of the Carolinas. And then behind it, we're going to kind of pick up the winds for a bit. And we're going to stay mild for most of the day before we start to see those temperatures dropping. But as you look at rainfall totals, most of the heavier rain still falling in portions of New England as we go throughout the rest of today. And that is the same story for snowfall. We could see up to 8 inches in some spots where you see that pink. That's a look at the big weather story of the day. Here's a closer look at your day ahead. All right, we're looking at temperatures really mild in the mid-Atlantic, temperatures in the 60s. We have that rain falling this morning, but improving conditions throughout the afternoon. And then those showers lingering along the Carolina coast before they move out. Also could see some showers in Jacksonville, Orlando, and also Tampa. And that's your Wednesday forecast.
All right, Michelle, thank you. Far above our own atmosphere, the James Webb Telescope has captured a brand new, mind-blowing picture of our universe. Check this out here. 500,000 stars captured in this one image. This is the heart of our Milky Way galaxy, a star-forming region about 300 light-years away from a supermassive black hole. This comes right as NASA says its Psyche spacecraft successfully used lasers to send deep space communications to the space agency. It's a critical step to safely putting humans on Mars.
Just awesomely beautiful. All right, coming up, where you can save big, fueling up for your Thanksgiving road trip.
But first, why a Texas lawyer is now behind the same bars that his clients once visited.
News lives in the now.
Israel tonight declaring war against Hamas following the brutal surprise attack within its own borders.
Now is raw.
We are in the West Bank city of Ramallah. Protesters are on the streets here to denounce Israel.
Now is real.
Most of the time, the Iron Dome works, but there are rare occasions that a few get through, like here in Ashkelon.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now, streaming free everywhere.
The NBC News mobile app. Get connected to your favorite news shows. For the top stories, breaking news, and live video, download the NBC News mobile app now.
Were you calling the shots, though, Mr. President, ultimately? Was the Biden administration caught off guard by this latest surge of migrants? Is it clear who's going to govern Gaza once this war is over? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Top stories coming to you live from Juarez, Mexico.
Reporting over the skies of Lahaina.
Every weeknight, it's your news playlist. Top Story with Tom Llamas, streaming weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
This is what a country in war looks like. You came to get blood. The sound of incoming shells. So many stories of heroism and heartbreak emerging from here.
The NBC News mobile app. Get connected to your favorite news shows. For the top stories, breaking news, and live video, download the NBC News mobile app now.
What's the message that you're trying to get out to young people?
Know what is in the drug supply.
We've got important news this hour about your money.
Mental health, big picture, why is it so tough right now?
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
Good evening. The essential facts are these. President Kennedy was murdered in Dallas, Texas. He was shot by a sniper hiding in a building near his parade route. He was dead within an hour. Lyndon Johnson is President of the United States. He took the oath of office in a jet airplane as he was returning from Dallas, where he went with Mr. Kennedy, coming back to Washington.
60 years ago today, President John F. Kennedy was shot and killed while riding in his motorcade through Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas. His death sent shockwaves around the world, spawning countless conspiracy theories around those involved, including gunman Lee Harvey Oswald. There were several ceremonies planned marking the milestone anniversary from Massachusetts to Texas.
Turning now to a Texas lawyer now on the wrong side of the law. The 77-year-old was arrested for allegedly supplying inmates with illegal drugs using legal documents dipped or sprayed with narcotics to get the substances in under the radar. NBC's Priscilla Thompson has more.
Arrested and booked inside the same jail where he once visited clients. Defense attorney Ronald Lewis now faces 2 felony charges and up to 10 years in prison, accused of smuggling drugs to inmates in Houston's Harris County Jail.
Carry multiple sheets of paper contaminated with a substance that is now being tested to confirm with whether it's indeed an illegal narcotic.
Deputies say the 77-year-old was a major supplier, believed to have delivered papers laced with ecstasy, synthetic marijuana, and narcotics, disguised as legal mail and documents to inmates in exchange for money.
Inmates will pay the attorney $250 to $500 to bring in the lace paper.
2 inmates died after ingesting substances Lewis brought into the jail, court documents say, and several others reported adverse side effects.
These dangerous narcotics are killing people, and it needs to stop.
Investigators say that from July to November, Lewis met with 14 inmates, none of whom he was representing, after which officers found more than 150 papers likely sprayed or dipped with the chemical compound.
On numerous occasions, the inmates being visited by Mr. Lewis were found to have sheets of paper laced with narcotics.
Court documents show Lewis admitted only to receiving payments for delivering papers. Lewis has not yet pled to the charges. His attorney tells NBC News, "We are in the process of giving a thorough investigation of the facts in this case." The Harris County Sheriff's Department launched an investigation earlier this year after an uptick in drug overdoses inside the county jail. While Lewis is the first arrest, the sheriff says there are other attorneys still under investigation and that his arrest likely won't be the last.
We are not cynical or naive enough to think that this one arrest will solve our jail drug problem.
And as for what's being done to address this drug issue, as the investigation continues, the sheriff's office says that they are photocopying all incoming mail and documents, and they're working to transition to a fully digital system. And it's important to know that this is one of several issues plaguing the Harris County Jail. Over the past year or so, they have failed a number of inspections for things like failure to provide medical care and lax monitoring of an inmate who died, among other violations.
Thanks to Priscilla for that report.
Still to come, summer had Barbenheimer, Thanksgiving has Wishpolian. We break down the movies hitting theaters for the holiday weekend right after this.
Fire has grown leaps and bounds. You see behind me is typical. How you doing?
Pretty bad.
The NBC News mobile app. Get connected to your favorite news shows. For the top stories, breaking news, and live video, download the NBC News mobile app now.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late breaking news.
All right,
Morning, Al.
I think when you open your eyes, you get to decide, how's my day going to be? We want to be a way to start your day, lighten your load, every single morning.
Still to come on the Channel 2 News. Well, the waters are certainly receding now. Still too close to call. Lester Holt reporting from the Ground Zero, as it's being referred to. It is, in fact, a taste of freedom. The Haitian people know a little something about resiliency. What's the biggest risk right now? Some of the troops who have been proud. I want to welcome you to the first presidential debate. In fact, we've been told we can't go any farther. Here are some resilient folks. Let me get in.
Now is raw.
How hard is it to see it like this?
Our house is no longer here, but we are here.
Now is real.
Let's break down what we know and then the big questions still outstanding.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
Hey, I'm Hallie. It's good to be with you tonight.
the debt ceiling. Here's why this matters. Please, please don't have your eyeballs glaze over. Here's why this matters. Talk to us about what we're supposed to call this. Is it a bailout? Is it a backstop? There's a difference because it matters whose money is being used to prop up these banks. We think we're getting close to this news conference. I will be honest with people. This is like an awkward moment where we think we're like right there. You're going to have to like tap dance with us maybe a little bit.
I do have my tap dancing shoes on, not to worry.
When I think about what the Today Show does, it's not just about the mornings, it's about your whole day. There's a feeling of we're in there with you. Then let's take on this day together.
Kristen Welker hosts Meet the Press every Sunday on NBC.
Rebotando de doctor en doctor. ¿Por qué tiene que ser así?
En Kaiser Permanente, el cuidado de tu salud es diferente, porque todos trabajamos juntos para cuidar de todo lo que tú eres.
Whose country are we in? Mine.
It is a classic Thanksgiving weekend for moviegoers across the country. Napoleon, the new historical epic starring Joaquin Phoenix, rides into theaters alongside Wish, the new animated Disney film celebrating the studio's 100th anniversary. The holiday weekend also sees the nationwide expansion of awards contenders Saltburn and The Holdovers. But for me, it's Napoleon, directed by Ridley Scott. He knows how to do an epic.
Yeah, we've been hearing so much about it. And for the family, it's going to be Wish because it's basically what our kids are going to be seeing on all of 2024 since it's a musical.
Yeah.
All right, it's time for Daniel San to meet Mr. Han. Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan revealed Tuesday that they will be starring in a new installment of the Karate Kid series. It came as part of a video also announcing a global casting search for the title character. Macchio, of course, rose to stardom playing Daniel LaRusso in 3 Karate Kid movies in the 80s and has reprised his role through 5 seasons of the sequel series, Cobra Kai. Chan, meanwhile, played mentor to Jaden Smith in the 2010 reimagining of the franchise, which ironically focused on Kung Fu. The film is set for release next December. Let's see who's going to be the next face when it comes to the Karate Kid, but I love that he is still rocking the OG style.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's exciting and unknown out there, someone we don't know yet, and be the next Karate Kid star. There is no stopping a Rolling Stone. On Tuesday, the legendary rockers announced the 16-date stadium tour in support of Hackney Diamonds, their first album of new material since 2005. It will also mark 60 years since Mick Jagger and Keith Richards first played in the United States, a fact that's apparently not lost on those golden gods. This tour is sponsored by AARP. The tour kicks off April 28th in Houston, Texas. Tickets will go on sale December 1st. I feel like I've been saying for the last 30 years, got to see them before they don't tour anymore. They are 80 years old, these Mick Jaggers.
This might be your chance.
Yeah.
It goes on sale December 1st. It's a lot of Christmas presents, maybe tickets for this concert.
Good idea.
Up next, millions of Americans are taking to the skies for the start of the holiday rush. But there could be some turbulence between flight attendants and airlines.
Stay on top of breaking news and the biggest stories of the day with NBC News Daily.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Morgan Radford.
I'm Vicki Wynn. I'm Kate Snow.
And I'm Zinklea Samwat.
Get in-depth reporting from across the country
We have breaking news out of the White House
and around the world,
Questions about the rebellion inside Russia.
and ways you can take care of your health
What are symptoms that people should be on the lookout for?
and your wallet.
Some really great last-minute deals if you have flexibility.
NBC News Daily, weekdays from 12 to 4 p.m. Eastern on NBC News Now.
People really don't know what's going to happen. Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. More good people than bad people, you know, right? There is some late-breaking news 4 hours since the Iowa caucuses. Private mail delivered.
All right, it just did too.
I think when you open your eyes, you get to decide, how's my day going to be? We want to be a way to start your day, lighten your load, every single morning.
What is going to happen now?
Going back and forth because they...
Oh, yeah, this is it, right?
Coming on the air with breaking news. We are live tonight from Juarez, Mexico. Reporting over the skies of Lahaina. Here in Florida. The time to evacuate has come and gone. You were seeing people just running for their lives?
People running for their lives.
We've seen this almost unbelievable power struggle. What does this mean for Ukraine? It's the battle off the field that's inspired the world.
Every night, it's your news playlist. Top Story with Tom Llamas. Streaming weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
What's the message that you're trying to get out to young people?
Know what is in the drug supply.
We've got important news this hour about your money.
Mental health, big picture, why is it so tough right now?
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
The NBC News mobile app. Get connected to your favorite news shows. For the top stories, breaking news, and live video, download the NBC News mobile app now.
We are back with what you need to know early today. The American Airlines flight attendants are asking federal officials for permission to strike. Union leaders say they are frustrated with the lack of progress in contract negotiations.
Sheetz is cutting gas prices this week to $1.99 per gallon. The discounted price for unleaded gas will last through Monday.
A Georgia woman accidentally left a tip on a Subway sandwich totaling more than $7,000. Vera Connor said when she put her number into the app for her loyalty points, the screen switched, turning that phone number into the tip. It took a month, but she's finally been refunded. We'll be right back.
Valvoline Full Synthetics offer 24 times stronger protection against engine-killing contaminants than the industry-leading synthetic to ensure your car still runs like new, year after year. Get 24 times stronger protection with Valvoline.
From inside Iran, from Israel, from Florida, from Lewiston, Maine. Part of our continued reporting. This is what a country at war looks like. Women, children. What is it like? Countless neighborhoods across the region that look just like this. Everybody good? Get tough for all this damage.
The NBC News mobile app. Get connected to your favorite news shows. For the top stories, breaking news, and live video, download the NBC News mobile app now.
We're talking possibly 1 trillion galaxies.
Yes.
That is a number that is just so hard to compute.
Whether it's the moon, whether it's Mars, it feels like we're on the cusp of something big.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
Kristen Welker hosts Meet the Press every Sunday on NBC.
Coming on the air with breaking news. We are live tonight from Juarez, Mexico. Reporting over the skies of Lahaina. Here in Florida. The time to evacuate has come and gone. You were seeing people just running for their lives?
People running for their lives.
We've seen this almost unbelievable power struggle. What does this mean for Ukraine? It's the battle off the field that's inspired the world.
Every night, it's your news playlist. Top Story with Tom Llamas. Streaming weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right, it just fits.
As we count down to the big event tomorrow, we meet a big sister and a little sister whose bond has taken them all the way to the biggest Thanksgiving celebration of them all. Here's Joe Fryer.
They're not related by blood, but 16-year-old Sophia and her mentor Conch are most definitely a match.
Oh my God. This is so cute. Oh
Paired together 4 years ago through Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Before I met Conch, I would say I was really a really timid person. Being with Conch, it's honestly changed my life.
Conch, what do you think when you hear that?
It's all that I wanted, so it makes me very happy. Our ukuleles!
They've bonded over their love of the ukulele. This was the audition video that scored them a trip from San Jose to New York, where they're now preparing to be perched on the singing Christmas tree float at the Thanksgiving Day Parade, part of Macy's partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters.
My whole family really grew up on watching the Macy's Parade, so it's really exciting to be here.
Exciting and meaningful, especially after Conch was diagnosed with breast cancer.
I didn't think I would be here for many reasons, and to be here with someone in my life that I've come to see as my little sister and my really good friend, it's just amazing.
How are you feeling right now?
I'm a little emotional, but yeah, I'm like so glad that I have Conch, and I'm glad that I was there for her, and I'm just so appreciative of her now.
A match to be thankful for. Joe Fryer, NBC News, New York.
Wow, what a story, what a journey. Looking forward to them becoming part of the great American tradition that is the Thanksgiving Day Parade.
It's so great that every step they all take, everybody has a story from kind of near, far, and what it took to get here and what talents are shared. Theirs is extraordinary, too. After the parade tomorrow, the fur will fly here on NBC. Besides gratitude, Thanksgiving means turkey, football, and the National Dog Show. About 1,800 of the country's top dogs will vie for Best in Show. Co-host John O'Hurley takes us backstage to meet the competition.
How are you, sweetheart? A little tiny cholo. You didn't bring your hair with you today, did you?
She did. We're right by the door.
I was just going to say, why did they put you right by the door? And you have no clothes. Take it to the ring. Show them your best stuff today, all right? From the small to the not so small. Hi, sweetheart. You and I have the same hair. Do you know that? Very similar.
You can catch the National Dog Show at noon Eastern tomorrow right here on NBC.
So much to look forward to. We got the parade, the dog show, the football, and food. See you tomorrow. A diplomatic breakthrough overnight in the Middle East. Israel and Hamas agreeing to a ceasefire for the release of hostages. We are live with the key takeaways from the agreement, which will also allow critical aid to flow into Gaza.
Drawing the line on redistricting in a key battleground state. The Wisconsin Supreme Court showdown with major implications for the 2024 election.
The riverboat brawl that stunned the country heads to court. What we learned after the co-captain involved in that infamous fight pleaded not guilty.
Breaking news, 2 stories sending shockwaves through Silicon Valley overnight. One CEO back in and another out. The latest twist in the OpenAI odyssey. While the founder of the world's largest crypto exchange steps down after pleading guilty to money laundering.
Marching for Macy's. Meet the Florida high school band getting in a New York state of mind for tomorrow's big parade. It's Thanksgiving Eve. Early today starts right now.
Shop Black Friday at Michael's now. Score great deals on thousands of items. Hurry, shop these deals today.
Good morning, I'm Philip Mena.
Glad you're with us. I'm Francis Rivera. Breaking news this morning, Israel and Hamas have agreed to a 4-day truce in the Gaza Strip and a limited prisoner swap. After a marathon meeting in Tel Aviv, Benjamin Netanyahu's government approved the deal early in the morning local time. For the latest, let's go to Washington, D.C. and Bree Jackson. Good morning, Bree. What do we know about the involvement of the Biden White House in this deal?
Good morning, Francis. A senior Biden administration official confirms to NBC News that the White House spent weeks working on this hostage deal. The U.S. and Israel had discussed delaying the Gaza ground invasion to make space for a potential deal, but that was apparently rejected by Israel. Talks also broke off briefly after the Israeli incursion into the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza. Negotiations were conducted through intermediaries with messages passed from Gaza to Doha, Qatar, or Cairo and back. We know that President Biden spoke directly with the Emir of Qatar to press for a deal. And late last night, in a written statement, Mr. Biden thanked the Emir and also the Egyptian president for their, quote, critical leadership and partnership in reaching this deal. The president said he has no higher priority than ensuring the safety of Americans held hostage around the world. Now, because there are up to 10 Americans being held in the Gaza Strip, this deal will likely secure the release of 3 of them, including 3-year-old Abigail Edan. She was taken after both of her parents were executed during the surprise terror attack. The deal breaks down like this. Hamas will release 50 hostages, mostly women and children, in exchange for 150 Palestinian women and children held in Israeli prisons. A pause in fighting and drone flyovers will start sometime today and continue for 4 days, and hostages will be released in stages. The truce will also allow much-needed humanitarian aid to reach Gazan civilians and could be extended if Hamas decides to release more hostages. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said the deal also includes Red Cross visits and medicine for the nearly 200 remaining hostages. Netanyahu called it a difficult but correct decision and stressed that fighting will resume when the deal elapses. There's only one obstacle now. Israelis have 24 hours to petition the country's Supreme Court to block the release of Palestinian prisoners, but there's little chance of the High Court standing in the way at this stage. Francis.
It could be a very special Thanksgiving for the families of the Americans who might be released. Bree, thank you.
Now to Colorado, where Donald Trump's political future is still in question. The state Supreme Court says it'll hear appeals in a case where voters are trying to keep the former president off next year's ballot. A group of voters filed a challenge arguing that Trump should be ineligible because of his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. A state judge last week dismissed the case. She decided that Trump did engage in an insurrection, but that the eligibility rules do not apply to former presidents. The state Supreme Court will start hearing appeals on December 6th.
The Wisconsin Supreme Court has begun hearing arguments in a pivotal case that could have a major impact on the 2024 election. Attorneys for 19 Democratic voters filed a lawsuit asking the court to rule that the state's district legislative maps are unconstitutional. They want the districts redrawn by March. Experts have argued that the state's current map is one of the most gerrymandered in the country. Wisconsin is a swing state, but the current legislative map heavily favors Republicans.
Abortion rights are expected to be a big part of the 2024 campaigns, and groups across many states are trying to get a head start to make sure the hot-button issue will get on the ballot. Our Dasha Burns has this report from Missouri.
Weeks after Ohio voted in favor of abortion protections, activists are hoping to continue that momentum in a state with one of the strictest bans in the country.
Looking at Ohio, and 18 counties that voted for Trump voted to approve abortion rights. That's not a fluke, that's a pattern.
Two competing groups are looking to put abortion access on the ballot in Missouri in 2024, one of them led by a Republican.
I'm from Missouri.
Jamie Corley is behind a proposal that would allow abortions up to 12 weeks and add exceptions for fatal fetal abnormalities, rape, and incest if reported to a hotline.
Some people watching this might say, what the heck's going on?
Right. So I am a Republican, and I am also pro-choice. I think that we now know that there are many more like me than one would think.
A more progressive group wants to allow abortions later in a pregnancy.
Why not try for something more expansive?
It goes back to what is passable today. Women are truly, their lives are at risk when they're pregnant in Missouri. We need something that can pass, and we believe that voters will support this.
But she's facing opposition both from groups that want to keep the ban in place.
In Missouri, we are a pro-life state, and we've been a pro-life state for 50 years.
And groups that want more abortion protections, like Planned Parenthood.
The idea that we would limit access at an arbitrary gestational age really does say that we aren't paying attention to what's actually the lived reality and what's happening on the ground right now.
Isn't 12 weeks better than nothing?
I'm going to just say no, it is not.
Views on abortion often defy party lines. So the question is, what will voters support? Allie Rand is a conservative Catholic mom of 5. She says she never imagined she'd support abortion rights until she experienced complications while pregnant with twins.
It was terrifying. It felt very like I had no options here. If something were to go wrong, what was I going to do?
What did that feel like to know that in the state where you live
and love? I love living in Missouri.
That you had no choices.
It's just a really helpless feeling. Almost makes you feel like if you chose to leave the state, that you're a criminal.
Her twins were born healthy, but she says she now supports abortions up to 12 weeks. Dasha Burns, NBC News, St. Louis, Missouri.
An Alabama riverboat co-captain was in court on Tuesday. Damian Pickett was seen in this video from August that drew national attention. He was attacked by boaters who refused to move their private boat out of the dock area reserved for the riverboat. Pickett has pleaded not guilty to a misdemeanor assault charge. The charge was not filed by the city. It was filed by another defendant who was among 5 charged in the brawl. In court records, Zachary Chipman says Pickett hit him first in the fight. The Montgomery police have said they consider Pickett to be a victim in this case.
Tragedy strikes a remote town in Alaska. A deadly landslide killed at least 1 person in the mountainside community of Wrangell, about 200 miles south of Juneau. Officials say several other people are missing and may be trapped under the debris. The 450-foot wide wall of mud and rock also destroyed several homes.
The U.S. is seeing a boom in Thanksgiving travel this year. According to AAA, a record 55 million Americans will journey to their holiday destinations by air and car. That includes a 6.6% increase in air travel compared to last year. Cheaper gas and low fares are fueling the surge.
And Thanksgiving travel getting a bit of an early holiday miracle. The severe storms causing chaos all across the country finally moving out to sea. NBC meteorologist Michelle Grossman is tracking the last lingering spots of trouble. Morning, Michelle.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, right on time. We're going to see that big system that we've been dealing with the past 2 days moving offshore. It's currently moving offshore. We have some lingering showers, though, in the northeast and also along the east coast, and that's going to linger a bit in New England, also along the Carolina coast. Most of us are going to be drying out over the next few hours, though. You can see all of this moving offshore, too. Most of the heaviest rain is over the Atlantic at this point. Down to the south, though, we're looking at some heavy rain throughout portions of the Carolinas. That's where you see those brighter colors. Then on the northern end, we're looking at some wintry weather, some blue. That's where the snow is falling. Could see up to 12 inches in some spots, mainly 4 to 8 in some spots. In the northern parts of Maine, we're going to see the heaviest amounts of snow. Also seeing some freezing rain. That's going to be tough as you're traveling this morning. So that will linger there a little bit longer as we go throughout the afternoon hours. Also along the Carolina coast, it's going to take a little longer to get off the coast there. Otherwise, we're going to be improving throughout the day. We're going to see the winds picking up a bit, but drying out. So that's good news. In terms of rainfall, we're looking at the heaviest rainfall throughout this afternoon into portions of New England. That's a look at the big weather story of the day. Here's a closer look at your day ahead. All right, we're looking at temperatures pretty mild in the mid-Atlantic and northeast today. We're dealing with some lingering showers throughout the afternoon, some snow showers, too, in parts of New England, especially in Maine. Also some showers by this afternoon in portions of Florida, Orlando, 82 degrees. And that's your Wednesday forecast.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Many Americans across the country are prepping for tomorrow's Thanksgiving feast. While there are plenty of ways to prepare a turkey, one in particular has fire officials urging caution. That's right there, frying the bird. They demonstrated how quickly it can go terribly wrong, and they gave some pointers to make sure your turkey is completely thawed before putting it in a fryer. Also, don't overheat the oil, and make sure the fryer isn't near any structure that could catch fire.
Coming up, the perfect holiday cocktail, maybe for after you deep fry that turkey.
But first, we're back in a minute with another late-night twist in the chaotic fight for control of ChatGPT's parent company.
Still to come on the Channel 2 News. Well, the waters are certainly receding now. Still too close to call. Lester Holt reporting from the Ground Zero, as it's being referred to. It is, in fact, the taste of freedom. The Haitian people know a little something about resiliency. What's the biggest risk right now? Some of the troops who have been crowned. I want to welcome you to the first presidential debate. In fact, we've been told we can't go any farther. You were some resilient folks. Let me get in.
Hey, I'm Hallie. It's good to be with you tonight. The debt ceiling. Here's why this matters. Please, please don't have your eyeballs glaze over. Here's why this matters. Talk to us about what we're supposed to call this. Is it a bailout? Is it a backstop? There's a difference because it matters whose money is being used to prop up these banks. We think we're getting close to this news conference. I will be honest with people. This is like an awkward moment where we think we're like right there. You're going to have to like tap dance with us maybe a little bit.
I do have my tap dancing shoes on, not to worry.
They told him I rejected him because he wanted to be female.
This is the story of a family divided, a fringe religious movement blurring the lines between church and state, and a teacher caught in the middle. This is Grapevine, an NBC News podcast. Listen now.
Fire has grown leaps and bounds. You see behind me is typical. How you doing?
Pretty bad.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
This is what a country in war looks like. You came to get blood. The sound of incoming shells. So many stories of heroism and heartbreak emerging from here.
I think when you open your eyes, you get to decide, how's my day going to be? We want to be a way to start your day, lighten your load, every single morning.
New this morning, Hollywood stars are coming under fire for statements on the Israel-Hamas war. On Tuesday, actress Melissa Barrera was dropped from the upcoming Scream 7. Sources tell Variety it was due to social media posts Barrera had made about the conflict. They were interpreted as anti-Semitic. A spokesperson for Spyglass Media Group told Variety that they have zero tolerance for anti-Semitism or the incitement of hate in any form. This comes the same day actress Susan Sarandon was dropped by United Talent Agency, also over comments she made about the war. At a pro-Palestinian rally in New York last week, Sarandon said Jewish Americans are getting a taste of what it feels like to be a Muslim in the U.S. Sarandon added at the rally that she is against anti-Semitism and Islamophobia.
We are watching a major crypto crackdown this morning, but first some breaking news. There is yet another twist in the CEO saga for ChatGPT's parent company. Let's turn to CNBC's Karen Cho, who has the details for us this morning. Good morning, Karen.
Francis, good morning. Yes, which human is in charge of the AI startup has gripped Silicon Valley for days. Sam Altman was fired over at OpenAI. He was hired by Microsoft. Now he's been reappointed the CEO of OpenAI. So lots of twists and turns. A new initial board has also been appointed. That will include Brett Taylor as chair. You may know the name. He was the ex-chair of Twitter, also the former co-CEO of Salesforce. Along with Taylor, there is Larry Summers, the noted economist and former U.S. Treasury Secretary, and Adam D'Angelo, existing board member and the CEO of Quora. So an independent investigation will also be carried out into Altman's conduct. Elsewhere, big news in crypto world. CZ, the CEO of Binance, pleading guilty to criminal charges in a Seattle federal court, including violating anti-money laundering law. The CZ will step down from the world's largest currency exchange as part of a $4.3 billion settlement with U.S. authorities. It has had a ripple effect on crypto world with some selling, but bouncing back is what we're seeing now in Bitcoin price. Back to you in the studio, Francis and Philip.
Okay, Karen, thank you.
Still to come, we've got the perfect cocktail to prevent a food coma. Cocktail specialist Dina Sayers puts a Thanksgiving spin on the classic espresso martini. Stay tuned.
Coming on the air with breaking news. We are live tonight from Juarez, Mexico, reporting over the skies of Lahaina. Here in Florida, the time to evacuate has come and gone. You were seeing people just running for their lives?
People running for their lives.
We've seen this almost unbelievable power struggle. What does this mean for Ukraine? It's the battle off the field that's inspired the world.
Every night, it's your news playlist. Top Story with Tom Llamas. Streaming weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
Fire has grown leaps and bounds. You see behind me is typical. How you doing?
Pretty bad.
Now is raw.
How hard is it to see it like this?
Our house is no longer here, but we are here.
Now is real.
Let's break down what we know and then the big questions still outstanding.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
From inside Iran, from Israel, from Florida, from Lewiston, Maine. Part of our continued reporting. This is what a country in war looks like, women. What is it like? Countless neighborhoods across the region that look just like this. Everybody good? Get tough for all this damage to the
Were you calling the shots, though, Mr. President, ultimately? Was the Biden administration caught off guard by this latest surge of migrants? Is it clear who's going to govern Gaza once this war is over? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
When I think about what the Today Show does, it's not just about the mornings, it's about your whole day. There's a feeling of, we're in there with you. Then let's take on this day together.
Thanks for tuning in. I'm Gotti Schwartz. Here are the stories we're following tonight. Storms keep coming here in California. The U.S. government just declassified this video. A lot more stories trending like crazy on social media. A controversy pitting lawmakers against young voters. What's the state of crypto today? Is it safe for investors? We've got another mind-bending story on artificial intelligence.
This is what my voice sounds like when I clone it.
That wasn't me. You gotta see this. Stay tuned now, weeknights at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on NBC News Now.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
El doctor ya te puede ver y verá más de lo que piensas. Verá la valentía de tu espíritu y cómo una cirugía ayudará a recuperarte a pasos gigantes. En Kaiser Permanente trabajamos juntos para ver todo lo que tú eres y darte el cuidado que tú mereces.
As we all know, Thanksgiving is tomorrow, so you probably got your turkey and your sides all ready for action, but what about the refreshments?
And here to help is Dina Sayers, bar and beverage specialist. Dina, you've got the perfect cocktail to keep that tryptophan is going to kick in with the turkey. You got something just the right thing for us.
Absolutely. You need some coffee to set that off.
Yeah.
This way you can not fall asleep after the meal.
Okay, so let's get started. It is a pumpkin spice
espresso martini.
The best combinations for Thanksgiving.
Love pumpkin spice. I think everybody does this time of year.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, that is actually a key point. So you want to have a drink that everybody is going to enjoy. It's really hard to please everybody, but we all know everybody loves pumpkin spice.
Let's get right to it.
All right, so I'm going to start with an American single malt. So I made this really simple. You're going to do 2 parts whiskey. You could do bourbon, rye, or like this, American single malt. And then 1 part coffee liqueur.
So it's not vodka. I always thought an espresso martini had vodka in it.
You can, but we're doing like the winter version.
Oh, I love it. Even better.
And then you're going to do 1 part fresh espresso.
And you said we can also do decaf, right, if you're trying to get to bed, which is the opposite of us right here.
Absolutely. And now 1 part chai honey syrup. And now this, you can make like a double chai tea. You could use decaf as well, and then do equal parts with the chai tea and honey just to balance it out.
There are all kinds of secret ingredients here that I would never ever guess that's in a not dirty martini, espresso martini, a pumpkin spice one, and that's the magic sauce,
and then the
right?
pumpkin puree.
We
So
think of
1 part of that as well.
We think of pumpkin spice as kind of, it's a hot drink, but I see the bowl of ice there, so we're going to have a cold?
Well, that's the beauty of this cocktail because it works well if it's frozen, straight up, or if it's hot as well. So you can do it based on the weather. You never know what kind of weather we're going to get these days.
All-weather drink, perfect.
Yeah, if you're going to do it frozen, you stick everything in the blender?
Yeah. Frozen in the blender, or if you want it hot, you just put it in a crock pot.
Oh, a crock pot. Yep. A crock pot can be used
No
for
idea.
martinis.
That's
Whole new approach.
So creative, okay.
So here I have a magic coffee salt rim. You could also use like whipped cream on the top.
What's in that? What do you have?
So this is, it's like a little bit of chili, coffee, and salt.
Are we going to cheers here?
Ooh, yes.
We're cheersing more than Thanksgiving for you being here with us, Dina.
Yes.
Who are we cheersing to?
It is my daughter's birthday in a couple days. Happy birthday, Indy Lee.
Oh, and happy Thanksgiving to you. Let's give this a shot.
Yeah, let's try it. Dina, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
As we go to break, have a drink on me. We'll be right back.
I love a little pumpkin, a little tea.
Perfect.
A little espresso.
Coming on the air with breaking news. We are live tonight from Juarez, Mexico, reporting over the skies of Lahaina here in Florida. The time to evacuate has come and gone. You were seeing people just running for their lives?
People running for their lives.
We've seen this almost unbelievable power struggle. What does this mean for Ukraine? It's the battle off the field that's inspired the world.
Every night, it's your news playlist. Top Story with Tom Yamas. Streaming weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
News lives in the now.
Look at this. You can't even see anything anymore.
Let's break down what we know.
You gotta see this.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
From inside Iran, from Israel, from Florida, from Lewiston, Maine. Part of our continued reporting. This is what a country at war looks like. Women, children. What is it like? Countless neighborhoods across the region that look just like this. Everybody good? Get to it for all this damage. Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some breaking news.
All right,
News lives in the now.
The horrors of war on full display on both sides of the Israel-Gaza border.
Protesters are on the streets here. Most of the time, the Iron Dome works, but a few get through.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
Still to come on the Channel 2 News. Well, the waters are certainly receding now. Still too close to call. Lester Holt reporting from the Ground Zero, as it's being referred to. It is, in fact, the taste of freedom. The Haitian people know a little something about resiliency. What's the biggest risk right now? Some of the troops who have been brought. I want to welcome you to the first presidential debate. In fact, we've been told we can't go any farther. Here are some resilient folks. Let me get ahead.
Kristen Welker hosts Meet the Press every Sunday on NBC.
With what you need to know early today. American Airlines flight attendants are asking federal officials for permission to strike. The union leaders say they're frustrated with the lack of progress in contract negotiations.
Sheetz is cutting gas prices this week to $1.99 a gallon. The discounted price for unleaded gas will last through Monday.
The IRS is once again delaying the enforcement of a 2021 law that requires payment platforms like Venmo or Cash App to send tax forms to people who received more than $600 a year. The agency said in 2024 that law will be revised to a $5,000 payment threshold.
A Georgia woman accidentally left a tip on a Subway sandwich totaling more than $7,000. Vera Connor said when she put her phone number into the app for her loyalty points, the screen switched, turning the number into the tip. It took a month, but she has finally been refunded. She had to fight a little bit to get it all back. And we will be right back here on Early Today.
They told him I rejected him because he wanted to be female.
This is the story of a family divided, a fringe religious movement blurring the lines between church and state, and a teacher caught in the middle. This is Grapevine, an NBC News podcast. Listen now.
Now is raw.
How hard is it to see it like this?
Our house is no longer here, but we are here.
Now is real.
Let's break down what we know and then the big questions still outstanding.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
Top story is coming to you live from Juarez, Mexico.
Reporting over the skies of Lahaina.
Every weeknight, it's your news playlist. Top Story with Tom Yamas, streaming weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
This is what a country at war looks like. You came to get blood. So many stories of heroism and heartbreak emerging from here.
Hey, I'm Hallie. It's good to be with you tonight. The debt ceiling. Here's why this matters. Please, please don't have your eyeballs glaze over. Here's why this matters. Talk to us about what we're supposed to call this. Is it a bailout? Is it a backstop? There's a difference because it matters whose money is being used to prop up these banks. We think we're getting close to this news conference. I will be honest with people. This is like an awkward moment where we think we're like right there. You're going to have to like tap dance with us maybe a little bit.
I do have my tap dancing shoes on, not to worry.
Fire has grown leaps and bounds. You see behind me is typical. How you doing?
Pretty bad.
Tomorrow, larger-than-life balloons will float through Manhattan alongside excited high school student performers. Julia Bragg with NBC South Florida caught up with some of them before they caught their flight to the Big Apple.
Empire State, here they come, from Parkland to New York City. It's a first for the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Eagle Regiment, and they are ready to take the spotlight on Turkey Day.
I'm pretty excited that we get to go to Macy's Day Parade, like one of the biggest parades in history.
Josiah Jimenez is joining 160 of his friends as their award-winning band marches right into that history.
What a blessing for these students, for our community, for everybody to really see all the positivity that comes out of Stoneman Douglas High School.
And the Eagles are in good company. Once the parade begins, you'll spot some moves straight from Kendall. Dozens of dancers from Maria Verdeja School of the Arts will sashay down 6th Avenue. And Monroe County is representing in Manhattan, too. Marathon Middle High School band director Chuck Brooker will join 400 of his colleagues from around the country, playing the bass trombone as part of the band director's marching band. We caught up with Brooker during his rehearsal in New Jersey.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm just so happy to represent the Marathon community and the Florida Keys as the southernmost director performing in the parade. It's very exciting.
But just exactly what these South Florida performers are performing is still a secret.
We can't reveal any of that just yet. You'll have to watch on TV on Thanksgiving morning.
And our thanks to Julia Bragg for that report. Going to cheer on especially the kids from Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida, given everything that they've been through and how that community's come together. Now time for giving thanks and how they've all pulled together.
Yeah, I mean, this is the moment. I mean, everyone here is looking forward to it. I mean, you wake up Thanksgiving morning ready to eat, and there's no better primer than sit down and watch the Thanksgiving Day Parade. All right, now here is Al Roker with a look at what's ahead this morning.
This morning on the third hour of today, Steve Kornacki's back with the big board to preview all the Thanksgiving football matchups, plus the sweet story of how a dad and his sons started helping neighborhoods in need of firewood, and the stars of Ladies of the 80s, A Divas Christmas in Studio 1A. All that and more coming up this morning on the third hour of today.
Best way to spend your pre-Thanksgiving morning. Thanks for watching. I'm Francis Rivera.
And I'm Philip Mena. Have a great Wednesday.
Let me show you something.
Let me show you something. It's a good life. It's a good vibe. It's a good time. Yeah, we live it up. Let me show you something. Yeah, we hanging at the window and we throw a little shaka with the pinky in the thumb. Like, let me show you something looking cute as a button. Yeah, I got what they want. All the boys, yeah, they lining up. Let me show you something. Yeah, I said what I said. Cause we just getting started.
Hello, Moto. Breaking right now on Morning News Now, a breakthrough deal between Israel and Hamas to release dozens of hostages held captive in Gaza.
It's really hard for us, but we're waiting for all of them to come back.
The agreement just made after weeks of negotiations, with the U.S. playing a key role in securing the deal. Also this morning at the Vatican, Pope Francis meeting with the families of some of the hostages. We have team coverage. And it's the nightmare before Thanksgiving. Millions of people traveling by plane, train, and automobile to make it home for the holiday. So will the weather cooperate with your plans? We are tracking the conditions, including a storm system making its way across the Northeast. Plus, more Americans passing on precautions when it comes to COVID-19. What doctors want you to know before you gather for the holiday. And a match to be thankful for. Joe is going to introduce us to a duo selected to take part
in tomorrow's big Thanksgiving Day parade. I can't believe it's tomorrow.
I know, and it's a heartwarming story. They'll be marching with so many other people. Looking forward to the parade tomorrow. Good morning. Good to have you with us on this day before Thanksgiving. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. We're going to get started this morning with that breaking news overnight. An agreement made between the Israeli government and Hamas to release dozens of hostages in exchange for a pause in fighting and the release of some Palestinian prisoners held in Israel.
Qatar, which served as a mediator between the two sides, formally made the announcement after nearly 5 hours of deliberations among Israeli cabinet members. Now, once implemented, it will mark the first pause in fighting since the war began on October 7th. Family members of the hostages are now speaking out, voicing some concerns and uncertainty despite the major diplomatic breakthrough.
You know, it's like a Russian roulette. We are waiting to see who will come back home. It's crazy. We don't have names yet, only speculations that it's going to be mothers and their children. And it's tough, very tough.
Prime Minister Netanyahu also spoke after the announcement, warning the war will continue with Hamas following the pause. The United Nations issued its own warning yesterday, saying nearly 2 million people have been displaced by the war. We have our team standing by to break down this agreement between Israel and Hamas, including NBC News foreign correspondent Claudio Lavanga and retired Navy SEAL Commander Dan O'Shea.
Yeah, but first let's bring in NBC News foreign correspondent Raf Sanchez. He's in Tel Aviv, and NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memoli.
So, Raf, let's start with you. Walk us through some of the details of the deal. How many hostages are being released? When does this start, and for how long could we see a pause in fighting?
Joe, Savannah, good morning. This deal was approved in the early hours of the morning by Prime Minister Netanyahu and his cabinet after an hours-long meeting. Under the terms of this deal, 50 hostages, women and children, to be released in exchange for 150 Palestinian prisoners, also women and children, who will be freed from Israeli jails. There will be a 4-day ceasefire in Gaza. Hamas is saying that ceasefire due to come into effect 10 a.m. tomorrow, 10 a.m. Thanksgiving morning, local time. Israel also agreeing to suspend drone flights above Gaza for a certain number of hours every day. And guys, there is an option for this initial deal for 50 hostages to be extended, with 10 hostages released every day in exchange for an additional day of ceasefire. Right now, we are in a 24-hour period where Israelis have the option to go in front of the Israeli Supreme Court and appeal for the release of these Palestinian prisoners to be blocked. The Supreme Court has never blocked one of these high-stakes negotiations in the past, but we are watching to see if anyone does go to the court and tries to file an appeal to stop this. Prime Minister Netanyahu also yesterday thanking President Biden for his role in mediating these negotiations. Guys.
Mike, let's bring you in here. Walk us through that, exactly what Raf just touched on, what role the U.S. played in this agreement and how the White House is responding.
Salud.
Salud y rodearte de quienes te hacen sentir bien. En Kaiser Permanente, trabajamos juntos para cuidar de todo lo que tú eres.
Well, Savannah, this was a heavy diplomatic lift, and in a statement released overnight, the president thanking the leaders of Qatar as well as Egypt for their role in helping to bring it to reality. The president also calling this deal a testament to the tireless diplomacy and determination of many dedicated individuals. Two of those individuals are Brett McGurk and Joshua Geltzer. They were asked by National Security Jake Sullivan in the early stages of this crisis to oversee a small working group dedicated to this hostage issue. We also know from White House officials that we remember President Biden traveling to Israel. We're told a focus of his meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu as well as the war cabinet in Israel at the time was about this hostage issue and the process for potentially obtaining the release of these hostages. Now, these negotiations intensified after the initial release of 2 American hostages, ultimately bringing in the leader of Egypt as well as the CIA director engaged in those talks. We're told that the deal finally did appear to come together over November 18th this weekend, but it was a tense few days to see it to this point. Now, The president arrived last night in Nantucket, where his family has celebrated the Thanksgiving holiday. For decades, we understand that it is possible we may hear from the president more directly today, guys.
So, Raph, we know there's a lot of anxiety among the families of the hostages. How are they feeling right now? Do we know anything about who is going to be released in this agreement?
Yeah, Joe, these families are in limbo. They know that there is a deal. They do not yet know who's coming out as part of this deal. We spoke a little earlier to a man named Gilad. Several of his grandchildren, including his 3-year-old granddaughter, are being held inside of Gaza right now. And we know this deal is for women and it's for children. So there is a good chance that his grandkids may be coming out as part of this deal. But he says he simply does not know at this point. There has been no official confirmation about who is on the list to be released or not. He says that he is holding out hope, but that he just won't know until he has them back in his arms. And his is a good example of just this painful situation that even though 50 hostages are slated to be released, there are 240 hostages being held in Gaza. That is 190 who are not coming out as part of this initial deal, including Gilad's son, the father of these little grandchildren. And he says for him, it won't be until his entire family is out and safe that he will be able to breathe easy. Guys.
Absolutely. And Mike, also, what are White House officials saying? Because we know that we expect Americans to be part of this, to be set free in this first round of hostage releases. What do we know at this point?
Yes, Savannah, as Raph indicates, the exact identity of these individuals is not yet clear. White House officials have been reluctant to get into specifics, but they did confirm that at least 2 American women, as well as a young 3-year-old girl, were among those who should potentially be released as part of this deal. Interestingly, the young girl tragically lost both of her parents in this initial attack. Now, what the White House also is saying is that they hope that this pause will allow them to further identify other Americans who can be part of potential future releases. As Raph also indicates, there are phases of this potential release, this category including women and children, other categories to come. Now, it's also worth noting this young girl who we understand to be part of this deal, I mentioned she was 3 years old. Her birthday, we're told, is actually on Thursday, so a potential reason to celebrate potentially after this is released.
Yeah, definitely. So, Raph, despite this deal, doesn't start till tomorrow, so the fighting does continue in Gaza. Israeli troops continue to surround that Indonesian hospital. Officials say they're also closing in on a refugee camp nearby. So what is the situation there right now? And is the pause in fighting enough time to get that humanitarian aid into Gaza and actually make a meaningful difference?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Joe, and it's one that Palestinian families inside of Gaza are asking right now. I was just speaking with a young mother in Gaza. Her name is Jumana. She says they are hopeful that for the first time in 47 days there will be an end to this bombardment, but that for them and for many families who fled their homes in Gaza City, a 4-day ceasefire doesn't mean that they'll be able to go home. And they expect, as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is saying, that the fighting will resume on the other side of this ceasefire. Now, we think that there are going to be hundreds of aid trucks that will cross over from Egypt as this ceasefire goes into play. But whether that's going to be enough for the more than 1 million displaced people, many of whom are desperately short of food, remains unclear. The UN says it will do everything it can to maximize this ceasefire, to get aid to people. But one of the really big questions here is how much fuel is going to be allowed inside Gaza, because as we have seen over these 6 weeks of war, without fuel, it is impossible to keep the lights on at hospitals, and it is impossible to distribute this humanitarian aid, even if you are able to get it inside Gaza.
All right. Raph Sanchez, Mike Memoli, thank you both for your reporting. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we're now joined by Dan O'Shea. He's a retired Navy SEAL commander and coordinator for the Hostage Working Group at the U.S. Embassy in Iraq. Dan, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. So first, what are your initial thoughts on this tentative deal, and how much do you see this deal being in the best interest for both sides?
Well, this is the reason Hamas took the kidnapped victims in the first place, because this was going to be their bargaining chip to basically force the IDF to stop this offensive that they knew was inevitable after the October 7 attacks. So it is, again, this deal was not across the table between Hamas and Israel. So I'm very cautious about this until it's complete, because anything could go wrong. and this could change overnight. So I'm being tight-lipped on terms of my perspective. It's a positive sign, but it does change the dynamic for both Hamas and Israel, and it may become a blueprint for the future how we get more hostages out. But it is a positive first step, and certainly a relief for these families, and for especially the American family, if they get their loved ones back, it will be a Thanksgiving like no other.
It's a complicated negotiation, to put it mildly. Explain to us some of the meticulous planning that goes on behind the scenes when it comes to trying to coordinate these hostage swaps. What are some of the things that need to even be considered before these exchanges are agreed to and then carried out?
Well, the devil is truly in the details, and I have been tracking this for over 20 years, and I've never seen something as complex as what we have in Gaza. First off, 240-odd hostages, 50 will be released, but what does that mean? How many more? Like, we don't know where all these hostages are being held. We don't know what condition they're in. We know there's roughly 40 kids and a number of senior elderly, many of whom are on heart medications and other medicines. So again, what is the calculus for those 50 that are chosen? That will be, again, there's so many layers to this, and we'll see what happens with the ceasefire coming in tomorrow morning. I hope it goes smoothly, but anything, and especially a situation, a very tense situation like Gaza, it could turn and go pear-shaped overnight.
Dan, let's say that it does continue on the path that it seems at this point and the hostages are released in the coming days. First of all, just walk us through what it's like for them, what kind of support and treatment they're going to get and need, and then also the type of information that can be gleaned from them as there's been this ongoing search within Gaza for where these hostages have been.
Well, first and foremost will be a medical check for everyone, including the young children. Everyone is going to need to be medically screened, and then a health check. I mean, the biggest issue is going to be the long-term mental health aspect of what happened in these 47 days of abject terror. And that will be an ongoing process. And once they've gotten past the medical and the health screening check, there will be questions, because obviously they want to find out how many locations they're held in, what were the conditions at the locations, and ultimately the names of all the other hostages they were held with. That will prove critical to bring about accountability. And I know part of the negotiation is that Hamas has agreed to let the Red Cross and Red Crescent come in and do inventory and health checks on the hostages. So those are positive steps, and there will be a lot of information coming out in these debriefs with those hostages.
All right, Dan O'Shea, thank you very much. We appreciate your perspective this morning.
At the Vatican, Pope Francis met this morning with relatives of Israelis who have been held hostage.
Yeah, the Pope also met with a group of Palestinians who have family members in Gaza. The meetings came just hours after the Israeli government approved this deal with Hamas to release dozens of hostages being held there.
NBC News foreign correspondent Claudio Lavaga joins us now with more on this. Claudio, good morning. So the Pope addressed the war earlier today, speaking at his general audience. What did he have to say, and what more can you tell us about these meetings with the families of the hostages?
Good morning, guys. Well, this morning during the weekly general audience, the Pope said that he heard of the suffering from both sides. As you mentioned, he met in two different occasions, both the families or the relatives of some of the hostages still being held in Gaza, but as well as relatives of Palestinians living in Gaza who are suffering the consequences of the war there. And he said that that is what war does. But also he went as far as saying that the conflict between Israel and Hamas has gone beyond war. He's called it now, it's terrorism. Well, now among the families of the hostages being held in Gaza were also the parents of Hirsch Goldberg Pauling. He's a 23-year-old American citizen. They spoke to NBC's Ann Thompson this morning. Let's take a listen.
There were 12 of us in the room with him. He was very kind and compassionate and spoke to us for a few minutes before opening up to hear a few of the stories about our loved ones.
Our hope very much is that order is going to come out of this. And so once those first 50 are released, they'll identify and know about the condition of the others, where they are, and we'll start to finally get some news.
They also said that they are aware that their son is probably not going to be among the hostages that are expected to be released in the next hours or days, because there will be mainly women and children. But they say that this is bringing them hope, because maybe in the future more hostages will be released, including, of course, their son. Joe, Savannah?
Claudio, is the aim here that these meetings with Pope Francis have any influence on the hostage situation and the war more broadly?
Well, the Pope told those families that he will do everything in his power, that he will use all the influence that he could have to ensure, to make sure that all hostages will be released and will be safely returned to their families. Now, of course, none of the parties involved in this war between Israel and Hamas are Catholic, but the Pope is a global leader that is seen as independent and that he is listened to. And the hope here from the Vatican and the Pope is that by showing that both sides are suffering, that may have an impact on this war, guys.
Yeah, I mean, we know the Pope has previously called for a ceasefire, for the hostages to be released. Remind us what he thinks needs to happen in the region.
Well, the Pope and the Vatican is one of those countries that has long recognized Palestine as a state, and the Pope has long called for a two-state solution, including in an interview at the beginning of November. That's the long-term solution for the Pope and the Vatican. But as you mentioned, since the start of the war, the Pope has called for the immediate release of all hostages, but also for an immediate ceasefire and access of humanitarian aid into Gaza. Guys?
All right, Claudio, thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, as we wait the news of a possible hostage release, there's another life and death situation underway in Gaza. Doctors are racing to save dozens of premature babies born in the throes of war. NBC's Erin McLaughlin has the story.
They call him Majul, Arabic for unknown, discovered following an airstrike in Gaza City. The doctors here fear his family is dead. No one has come forward to claim him, he says. More than a week ago, the world first met Majul at the besieged Al-Shifa hospital, along with more than 30 other premature babies.
RPGs. AK-47s.
Israel, the U.S., and the European Union have all condemned Hamas for using hospitals as bases for military operations and for using Palestinian civilians as human shields, which Hamas denies. Eventually, help arrived. 31 babies evacuated. Hypothermic, dehydrated, and starving, yet alive. Although 2 didn't survive the trip to Egypt. Majul stayed in Gaza as they searched for his family, along with 2 others, including little Anas Stete. If we die, we all die together, his father says. The Stete family knows what it means to be torn apart. The violence forced his family south, leaving Anas alone in Al-Shifa. For more than 40 agonizing days, they waited. We lost hope, his dad says. We thought, that's it. We're not going to see our son. But Anas Stete is going home. We found him, his grandma says. I can't describe this happiness. At least for this family. There's tears of joy and smiles in Gaza. As for Majul, if no one claims him, officials say he'll be sent to an orphanage, like so many other babies in Gaza. Erin McLaughlin, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
Right, powerful report there.
The Thanksgiving travel rush is now in full swing. Millions of Americans are setting off on their trips today, expected to be one of the busiest days for travel this holiday season.
Drivers in the east are still battling with rain and wet roads this morning, but we can be thankful that conditions are expected to improve later today.
NBC News reporter Gary Grumbach joins us now from a rest stop in Woodbridge, Virginia, with everything you need to know before you hit the road. So, Gary, that storm system moving east slowed things down yesterday. How are conditions on the roads this morning?
Hey there, good morning, guys, from the Dale City rest stop here, about 45 minutes south of Washington, D.C. And yeah, it rained a ton yesterday, rained overnight, so things are really slick and wet on the roads. There's also a ton of fog in the area as well. So that's something to be concerned for if you're heading out on your Thanksgiving travels today. We also talked to our friend Andy Gross at AAA.
Si manejas un auto de 2017 a 2023, preste atención. Si manejas un
of hostages that were released today, but it's believed at least 3 Americans, 2 women, and a girl are on the list of hostages expected to be released. But when that happens is unclear for now. About 20 minutes earlier, the White House issued another statement in regards to that, saying, and let's bring it up here, that we're glad to see the process moving forward, working by the hour to get those Americans included in this first group of 50, including little Abigail, who turns 4 today. And of course, President Biden referring to Abigail Moridan, who's become somewhat of a symbol of the dozens of children held captive. She was captured of Hamas, of course, after both her parents were killed trying to flee their home in South Israel. Her 2 older siblings survived, though, by hiding in their bedroom closets for hours. So a lot of trepidation, a lot of anxiety, wondering what is going to happen or when this young girl will be released, who, by the way, turns 4 today.
Thanks for this, Richard. That's the CBC's Richard Madden reporting for us in Washington. And we want to head back now to the CBC's Briar Stewart. She's part of the news team in southern Israel. We know that there's really a countdown until some of the hostages are where you are.
And the latest we've heard is that they will be here very soon, traveling by bus from the border with Egypt. And we won't know when it arrives, but we'll be told by the military officials that are here. They'll be here for perhaps 30 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, and then they will be taken by helicopter to hospitals to reunite with their family members, who you can only imagine what family and extended family and friends are going through as they've been watching this video of them crossing at the Rafah crossing with Egypt and seeing their faces for the first time. As I said before, we got an official list of the hostages that were released from the government, but long before that, you had people on social media identifying them because they could see in the images who they were. And now, of course, you have so many other families waiting to figure out whether or not their loved one will be released this week as part of this deal. Again, the original agreement was for 4 days, 50 hostages in exchange for 150 Palestinians who are held in prison in Israel. But of course, it can be extended as long as Hamas keeps releasing another 10 hostages each day. And how this is supposed to work is that Israel was supposed to get the list the day before, and then they would notify the family members if their loved one is on the list. We don't have confirmation from the government yet that the list for tomorrow has come out. And also, we don't know yet whether or not there's timing attached for the expected release tomorrow. I mean, today we got pretty precise timing around when they were coming out. They said 4 o'clock local time, and it was not long after that we got notification that they were on their way. So it is unclear whether or not we will get detailed information about tomorrow yet, but certainly for all those families in Israel that have worried for weeks now about their loved ones, seeing the hostages come out today, seeing that they appear to be in pretty good condition, is very heartening, I'm sure, for all of those families that are still painfully waiting.
Briar, thank you for the latest on this. That is the CBC's Briar Stewart. She's on an Israeli military airbase where the hostages are being held and are being taken. Pardon me. This is the scene again in Tel Aviv. It is a square where relatives of the hostages are gathering right now as they, of course, in some cases await to receive their family members. I want to head back now to the CBC News chief correspondent, Adrian Arsenault. We have this list of the Israeli hostages. We don't have one of the 39 Palestinians.
No, but I do think we will get one. I think I would imagine we will get one soon. Also, their families are going to start sending out the list soon. It's interesting when I look at this group, I suspect that these might be friends of and neighbors and maybe some relatives of those released today, but I think that the families of those released today are either at or near the hospitals waiting to see them. And again, a lot of these people are displaced, right? So when they are released from hospital and into the arms of their families, it's not a matter of them going home, because in some cases their homes have been burned to the ground or destroyed, or they're just not there anymore. So Tel Aviv and its hotels and the environs may become home for a lot of these people for quite some time. And as we're sitting here watching this at this time of night, there's going to be another list that more phones will be ringing in Israeli homes from the Israeli Prime Minister saying, your loved one is on a list for tomorrow. But somebody else is not getting that call.
Yes.
Right? So it's difficult.
And to your point that we expect to learn more information from the Palestinians as well, I'm looking at an update here from the Associated Press saying that a Palestinian official says 33 Palestinians have been released by Israel from the West Bank prison. And so that is some of the latest information reported that we're getting on that. The expected number was 39. This is just to say 33 at this stage, but we don't know. We are continuing to follow along with this. This here is a look at the Ofer prison near West Bank, and that is one of the areas where many of these Palestinians were being held as then they made their way, as you described for us, Adrian, to their respective locations. As we get into our final 60 seconds here, just any final thought from you, Adrian? This special coverage continues.
How exhausted everyone must be, how exhausted Israelis are, how exhausted Palestinians in Gaza and West Bank are. This is 4 days of potential respite, maybe 10 days if everyone is lucky, if you will. Day 11 scares so many people. What is coming next? I do not know. This is far from over.
That is our CBC News chief correspondent, Adrian Arsenault, who's joined us for special coverage. Again, you were looking at the scene, I believe, in Tel Aviv, where we know relatives of the hostages have gathered. We know that, in fact, this is Museum Plaza, but it has been renamed, so to speak, Hostages Plaza, as they gather and wait to support each other, wait to hear good news, wait to perhaps embrace their relatives as well. Special coverage of this day continues next right here on CBC News Network with my colleagues Andrew Nichols and Hannah Thibodeau.
On the hostages, because this is going to be quite a key story, isn't it, in any potential ceasefire? Yeah, so
Cibe Medical actúe ahora para mantener su cobertura. Blue Shield.
Lama.
Maintenant que je suis avec toi, ça va? Donc il y a ce petit truc, il y a ce petit...
This holiday season, it's gonna be busy. It's gonna be emotional. But it's gonna be worth it. With McCormick, it's gonna be great.